God bless everybody. Today it is April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2025. What a better day than to put out a video like this. So, a lot has happened since we got into the new year on the Jewish calendar of Nisan 1. And Erdogan kicked it off with a big speech at a holy event at the end of Ramadan, and which is called Et al Fitzer. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I'm doing the best I can here. This ends their Ramadan month, or their holy month in the Muslim community, and he came out and basically indicated that Allah should damn Zionist Israel and basically destroy it. That's pretty harsh rhetoric. Now, I had indicated some time ago, about 7-8 months ago, actually that was on August 29th of 2024, I did this video, and basically I indicated that on March 30th of 2025, now I indicated that this would start a siege on Tyre, Lebanon, or at least the start of an invasionary process into Lebanon that would, as I've indicated on my Paradigm 2030 chart for some time, and you can go back and look at those videos, that we would see a full-on siege and a destruction of Tyre, Lebanon by the end of July. So if you looked at Alexander the Great, and you look at what happened in Syria, Syria fell in December, and Alexander the Great entered the battle from Turkey into Syria around December, January. Then he goes into Lebanon around March, April. We're in Nisan right now, and I'll show you that connection with Nisan in Ezekiel 26:1, and that he would be under that Tyre, Lebanon would be under complete siege by and basically collapse by the end of July of 2025. When you get into Ezekiel 26:1, it gives us a Paradigm 2030 date stamp of March 30th of 2025. And it also talks about this attack getting ready to happen on Tyre, Lebanon as we move forward in this prophecy. So when you look at Ezekiel 26, it tells us a couple things right off the bat that's extremely important to understanding what's getting ready to happen right now as we move forward in Nisan. And Nisan of this year, the month of Nisan on the Jewish calendar, falls between November 30th and April 28th. So this is a high watch time for Turkey to enter into Lebanon, and I believe that he will in this period of time. Another reason I believe this will happen is when you talk about the 11th year, we're talking about Zedekiah. So if you look how I structured the Paradigm 2030 chart, it reflects, now this only shows 3 of them. I'm going to build a chart that actually shows approximately 5 kings that reflect history to future. And what I mean by that is each of these leaders, these 2 are from Israel and Erdogan's from Turkey, reflect leaders in the past. Reuven Rivlin reflects Zedekiah based on the number of years that he's been in office today, based on the timestamps in the Bible. Isaac Herzog represents Jehoiakim. Erdogan represents Nebuchadnezzar II. Actually, the new leader of the Kurds, which was elected in October 20th, 2024, reflects Darius the Mede. And you can actually go and look at the Egyptian leader today, and he reflects also possibly a leader from Egypt. So all these things line up. So what I'm saying is when you take the 11th year of Zedekiah, which is 2014, that takes you to 2025. When you apply this to the Jewish calendars of the first day of the month of the first part of the new year, that takes you to Nisan 1, okay? Nisan 1 is March 30th of 2025. That day that Erdogan gave his speech basically started Ezekiel 26 prophecy into the future of today, okay? Now, we know this is a history lesson getting ready to play out. Look, all of these prophets, Daniel, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, all of them, Isaiah, all of them were showing you a past history lesson that is getting ready to reflect what is getting ready to happen now. They warned you of all these things and what to look for. They didn't do this for no reason. God doesn't do anything for no reason. He does everything for a reason. And so we should pay attention to how this works. So when you get into this 11th year of this king, Zedekiah, it's talking 2025 based on the time Reuven Rivlin has been in office. Now, I understand he's a past president of Israel between 2014 2021, and now we have a new leader called Isaac Herzog between 2021 2025, but he reflects Jehoiakim based on the exact number of years he's in place, and all those paradigm stamps are directly on the charting of my paradigm 2030 chart. But what does it state here? In the first day of the month, okay, he's talking about the new month. He's talking about Nisan 1. He's talking about March 30th. And Ezekiel is having this word given to him on the first day of Nisan of the new year. So he knows where he is in the calendar on the Jewish dates. You cannot use the Gregorian calendars. They would not know what that meant back then. Okay, what is it saying? Son of man, because that Tyrus or Tyre, Lebanon, has said against Jerusalem or Israel, ah, she is broken. That was the gates of the people. She is turned unto me. I shall replenish. Now she is laid waste. So he's talking about a judgment getting ready to happen to Tyre, Lebanon on the first day of Nisan, a starting of a prophecy in Ezekiel 26 that's going to play out into the future. And I believe that if you look at Nebuchadnezzar's movements and Alexander the Great's movement, especially Alexander the Great's movements, that this will play out in a similar fashion. Now realize this is modern warfare today over, chariots, horsemen, guys on feet, didn't have, aircraft, things like that, big battleships, drones, and all this. It will be a different type of warfare, but I believe the path of movement that Alexander the Great used will be a path that we will see, because this is a history lesson moving into the future. So what happens? Now this is off Wikipedia. This is Alexander the Great's movements in time. When Alexander comes from Grecia down into Lydia, down into Turkey, he goes into this battle of Tyre. Now look at the dates on this, and this is why it's hard to discern exactly, other than through the prophets, when this is going to start. As he tells you, Alexander comes in around January into Syria. Well, you just saw Syria fall around December, January, and you're getting ready to what? Go into a siege of Tyre as you move into Nisan 1, going into a total siege on Tyre, Lebanon by July of 2025. But then look, he comes around Jerusalem between Jordan and then does a siege on Gaza. And if you look at the siege of Gaza, I've gone and shown you this in the history books, that happens in October. Okay, so he starts in January, okay, here, and by October of 2025, Gaza falls, okay, That collapses Egypt, because this battle of Gaza will not be against the Palestinians. It's against Egypt, as Egypt's encroaching into this area. Then what does Erdogan do in this case, as Nebuchadnezzar or Alexander the Great did, almost mimicking each other? That's what I mean. It's going to mimic each other a third time. He comes back from Gaza once Egypt collapses, and this is him building the city of Alexandria, because the Egyptians capitulate at that time. Then what does he do? He comes back from Gaza to Tyre, and then comes over to Erbil, Iraq, to do the Battle of Gaugamela in October. Now this is interesting timing, because you have October here and October here, and yes, they're different years, but I believe these will happen simultaneously in this year. Also, you'll have the Battle of Carchemish in May of this year, which would align with this column, and those both would come down and attack Tyre and then go into Gaza. But once you come from Gaza back to Tyre and then over to Erbil, this will then collapse into what they call the Battle of Shush Iran, or the Persian Gate, which is Daniel 8. And once this completes, that would complete Daniel 8. Now at this point in time, because Turkey has consumed all of the Middle East, and Libya's joined, Sudan's joined because Egypt's fallen, Yemen's in this picture, Iran's fallen as a nation. Actually, Afghanistan could be considered in part of this. Turkish, these stand nations would probably be included, and you would then encompass this whole area of the Middle East. Okay, so that's your 10 nations, and once Iran falls, they would complete. You would have all 10 nations in the picture, because he would have consumed the whole Middle East, and then he'll take all those 10 nations and move back to Israel. Okay, if this plays out as I think it will, because we're compressing in a time zone of the Shemitah and the strong generation, we only have, I'll give you the date stamp now, 1623 days to the Feast of Trumpets of September 10th of 2029, that we have a compression issue, and this is going to amplify in the next year between those two blood moons on Purim 2025 and Purim 2026, with another blood moon, which is interesting. You have a middle blood moon, or a second blood moon, in this year in October, okay, and a massive star alignment also. And when I did the Darius the Mede video, which added a lot of content to the Paradigm 2030 chart, because when Darius the Mede came in 2024 on October 20th, that started his first year. When you go into Daniel 9:11, it talks about the first year of Darius the Mede. So you know where you are in the Bible on the time that we're in this period right now. But I also indicated that when you get to the end of the fall feast of 25, I'm sorry, this line's in here, I'm just trying to show you the picture of this, that we have this massive alignment. You have the constellation the Lion, this woman, and balances, or Libra. And like I say, we're working in prophecy, but when you get a star alignment like this, you got to pay attention. You got Daniel, weeks, 70 weeks, Angel, Michael, Iran, getting ready to be attacked as Trump is bombing the Houthis and getting ready to attack Iran. That's getting ready to happen at any time possibly. You got Darius, this asteroid down here, Cyrus the asteroid, and King the asteroid, all aligning in the Feast of Trumpet of fall of October of 2025. And so it's extremely important that lines up with what Ezekiel's talking about in the sky. But that's in October of 2025 as we move into that mapping system of Alexander the Great and his movements. Let's go back to today, and I'll show you how this is going to play out and why this is going to affect Tyre, Lebanon. So he's talking about the 11th year of Zedekiah, 2025. In the first day of the month, we saw a prophecy being given to Ezekiel that he would basically see a siege or a destruction of Tyre, Lebanon, and that we would also see in this prophecy that Nebuchadnezzar, or Erdogan in this case, would go down, and this would also affect Israel as well as Egypt. So when you get down in here, it talks about how Nebuchadnezzar the king from the north comes with all his chariots, horses, and everything, comes down and sieges Tyre, Lebanon, in the first day of the month, Nisan 1, between March 30th, when it started, when Erdogan created his threat asking Allah to destroy the Zionist Israel and the nation of Jerusalem itself. Now he's concerned that the Temple Mount stays intact, so he does have a laser focus on the Temple Mount, and that does matter. So when you come into the Paradigm 2030 chart and you actually look at this area here, we're going to blow this up real quick. This is the next year, because you're going into this blood moon of Purim into an ending blood moon on Purim of 2026. And so you are here. Basically, what occurred here, let's go through this real quick because this is extremely important. Everything started to break on March 14th of this year when we had this blood moon. What happened? The Gaza ceasefire fell apart. Trump goes over and destroys and starts bombing a number of sites in the Houthis. Okay, Israel does a major expansion into Lebanon, and we start to see consolidation of Turkish troops in Syria, which I'm going to show you as we move forward. You have these three blood moons as you work into the next year, and this is that one around that solar or that astrological event of Darius the Mede, and how all those things line up on the Feast of Trumpets of 2025. You've got this blood moon partial solar eclipse at that very moment in time. Okay, so you've got a lot going on here that's lining up, and I had indicated, if you looked at this, so what happened here? You had a blood moon on the 14th, you had a solar eclipse or partial solar eclipse on the 29th. Those are judgments against Israel and the nations. Also, you had Ramadan end on March 30th. That takes you into Nisan 1. You had Erdogan threaten with the destruction of Israel as you get ready to watch basically an invasion of Turkey into Nisan. As I've indicated, now it says on the first day of Nisan, so we're walking into Nisan, so I'm guessing he's going to invade Lebanon in the month of Nisan. I'm trying to be as specific as I possibly can without trying to get to the point that I'm giving you false information. I can only use what the Bible tells me. Okay, so when Ramadan ends, he threatens him on that holy holiday of the Muslim month right after Ramadan. I had indicated that we would see Turkey come in, start an invasion into Lebanon with a siege of Tyre, Lebanon, that would complete around July of 2025. I believe this is what's getting ready to happen as you walk into this second set of blood moons. So the next 6 months is going to be really radical. So as Ezekiel 26 verse 1 indicates, on the first day of the month, Nisan 1, Erdogan threatens total annihilation of Israel, condemns them completely, and says that if they don't quit expanding into Syria and Lebanon, that he would come down and do an invasion, because he thinks Israel is expanding up to an invasion into Turkey. So I don't want to make this video too long, so let's go over some headlines and current events. I believe this will go through everything you need to know, and knowing exactly where you are and how Ezekiel 26 tells you this is getting ready to happen. Now, Before we get into these headlines, everybody's watching Russia, Ukraine, the earthquake in Myanmar, Trump's tariffs, China is doing drills in Taiwan. You got all these other activities going on, and they're not paying attention to Erdogan. And I'm going to tell you right now, what's happening in this front is this. Trump, Netanyahu, and Erdogan have had phone conversations within the last few days. And these phone conversations started actually about 8 days ago. Actually, where's it at? There. So Erdogan's been talking to Trump. Trump's been talking to Netanyahu, and this is what I believe is getting ready to happen. So let's look at what they might accomplish here. So Trump is looking at Netanyahu saying, look, you have two fronts here. You've got Lebanon in the north, you got Gaza in the south, you got your hands full, as well as you got Houthis launching missiles at you. So you deal with that front. I, Trump, am going to deal with the Houthis here in Yemen, and I am going to strong arm Iran into either coming back to the nuclear table or physically bombing them in some fashion, because that's what he stated he would do. Now, Israel might be part of this, but they have their hands full in Lebanon and Syria, or Lebanon, Syria, as well as Gaza. Okay. Trump is going to allow Erdogan to stabilize this area up here in Iraq and Syria, okay, because he's an ally of NATO, but he does not realize that Erdogan's goal is to go down and destroy Israel, which is amazing because that's what Erdogan has been saying that he's going to do for, I don't know, at least a year, in harsh rhetoric anyway. The United States has basically one base left over here, which I believe that they would move down into Saudi Arabia, and this would take no time to evacuate this base. And I believe they're already in the process of doing this because Trump's been stating for some time he's getting ready to pull our troops. He stated this about 60 days ago, and he said within 90 days he was going to do it. And we're getting ready to actually have another conversation between Erdogan and Trump in April, the beginning of April, which I believe that will take place. And then what happened? Same thing back in 2019. Trump pulls the troops out of Syria. Erdogan fills that vacuum 3 days later on Yom Kippur on October 9th. 2019, and then you started to see the COVID reports come out in mid-October in China, which is what I'm afraid will happen in 2025. We're going to see Trump pull those troops back. Then what's going to happen? Erdogan's going to fill that vacuum and know he controls Syria and actually has the authorization through everybody else to really do this, not knowing that he's going to enter Lebanon and then bring a pandemic possibly with him. So all this could be taking place as we move forward. When you get into the headlines, you will realize that we are in trouble here, and this is possibly really going to happen. Now, as you go through these articles, we're just doing headlines here. I'm going to sort of explain what's going on here. So Trump and Erdogan's been talking with Rubio, the Secretary of State, about getting these F-35s. Now, I've been talking about for 5 years through representatives, Noreen Hammond, and trying to reach out to I don't know how many people that they shouldn't have sold those F-16s to Turkey, because we sold them just recently through Trump of all things. Biden was going to do it. Trump finalized it, I believe. He sold them 80 F-16s and 40 refurbishment packages, which now he's pushing down into Syria. Turkey's building, and I believe if you go into this article, Turkey has built in Iraq and Syria approximately 200 bases, okay, 2019, he took that 30-mile swath of zone, and he's been working hard at maintaining that buffer zone that he's expanding constantly down towards Israel, which is amazing because he's complaining about expansion of Israel, but he's doing the same thing in Syria. He himself has expanded in everywhere from Azerbaijan to Greece, North Africa. He's got his tentacles in all kinds of different areas. But realize this invasion into Syria has already happened. I've been talking about this. Look, these Turkish-backed groups and HTS that took over Syria in 12 days in December was the start of this setting up an invasion in Ezekiel 26, which is going to end up in Lebanon probably this month. On top of this, you have a buildup and a buffer zone between Egypt and Palestine, not allowing refugees through that border or Jordan, which is frustrating Erdogan because now what's happened? All those people that went back into northern Gaza after the ceasefire started now are being evacuated and compressed down into the southern portion of Gaza again, as Egypt's building up a wall of resistance that's getting ready to go against Israel, because they're not happy with Israel at this point in time. And look, Nebuchadnezzar, or in this case Erdogan, is not happy with Israel, but they're extremely upset with Egypt. And you can go back in the history and look at this. When the Arab Spring came into place and the Muslim Brotherhood controlled that area, we went in and actually removed that government, brought al-Sisi in. That frustrated Erdogan because he backed the Muslim Brotherhood at that time. So you're having these massive evacuations again in Gaza. Think of the carnage that's happening on the ground, how these people were brought back. Now they're being pushed back down south, and they allowed Hamas to entrench themselves in here, and they've allowed this to happen to themselves, and so it is what it is, but it's biblical, and so we need to understand that that's what's happening here. You're also having a border wall built between Jordan and Israel because they don't want people coming in and out, because there's a security issue in between these two nations. So this is also happening at this time. Jordan is going to be affected by this at the same time as all these other nations. They're sort of off to the side, but Jordan will be a factor as we move forward, and you can see that in the Bible through Edom or Judea. Erdogan, just in the last 24 hours, I believe, went and talked to the Jordanian king about this issue and how he's basically bordering the wall and what this is going to do to affect the relationship between Turkey and Jordan as we move forward. Plus, Jordan's not taking any refugees, and Erdogan's not happy about this because he doesn't want those people getting, and no one wants to see the civilian populations destroyed. Okay? It's the government or these terrorist groups that are the real problem here. Look, if you don't know that Turkey's not doing major expansion into Syria right now, you are not paying attention, and you're not watching don't watch the general media news, because they're not going to show you anything out here. Look, I watch all the news out here, and they won't tell you what's really happening on the ground. It's all propaganda and white noise when you go there. Turkey is getting ready to, and if the reports are right, he's already pushed his F-16 down into these bases. So he's ready to go, guys. He's totally ready. I'm sure in the next few weeks, as Trump pulls our troops out, he's going to be completely ready to go, and we're going to see this movement into Lebanon as we move forward. One last thing I'll mention is you have 4 groups over here: the Christians, the Kurds, the Alawites, and the Christians that are trying to be formed into the Syrian government as an inclusive group. This probably is going to fracture and not happen, and so we're watching, as we watched all those massacres on the Alawites up there, these groups are basically being genocided. Turkey's been genociding the Kurds or the Medes since 1984, and you're going to see that conflict arise again approximately around May of 2025. So I just wanted to bring you this update. I'm not doing these real often because I'm not going to do the drama thing and give you a daily report because it's just too hard to keep up with everything. Plus, I'm still working on charts and I'm trying to make sure that I've got everything right on the charts. On the chart itself, I have basically added all the biblical elements that I know about at this time. When I updated it on February 23rd of 2025, I had added Darius the Mede and his timestamps. I added where the two witnesses come in, which is right before the signing of the treaty 4 days prior. When the witnesses are taken up 4 days prior to the actual rapture or taking up of the church on the Feast of Trumpets of September 10th of 2029. And so all general biblical elements have been applied to the chart. And when I usually complete a chart, not to say anything special here, but usually things break. I know when I completed my 117 step chart on Yom Kippur on October 9th of 2019 on my birthday, Erdogan invaded within hours or a day, 24 hours after that. And so my concern is when I had finished this chart, as we go into this month of March, April, we're going to see this attack by Turkey into Lebanon, and this will then basically change the whole Middle East and the complexion of what's going to happen here. Look, this next year is going to be horrific. I mean horrific. Look, gold right now is almost at $3,200. That ought to tell you that there's a lot of fear out here because gold and safe havens are moving up. The equity markets are getting ready to collapse. They have been for about a month or so. And this is not due to just Trump's tariffs. This is due to 800-day inversion that we had that goes completely into a recession, depressionary mode, as it always does when it uninverts. So this is something that's been getting ready to happen for some time. I believe the 2-year bond will stay anchored somewhere between 3.5 and 4, but you're going to see the 10-year move up dramatically to at least 6 or 8, and that will then change structure on loans, which will then cause massive defaults. And we are also going to see, as we go into now, we're moving into the job reports for the first quarter. Those are going to be extremely soft as you watch inflation move up, and so the Fed can't really reduce rates, and so this is going to cause all kinds of problems because tomorrow you have on April 2nd, Tariff Day, which I believe is going to send the markets into a nightmare because he's going to immediately initiate these tariffs on everybody in one day. And so you're probably going to see some capitulation and risk off, which means people are basically not buying into the market and they're pulling their money out, and possibly if it starts to break too much more in the next quarter or two, we could see the total equity market start to collapse and you could see a major correction. You're almost at 10% correction right now, which is a bear market, but I believe Bitcoin's getting ready, as I put a video out a few months ago, Bitcoin's getting ready to go 25,000. I know it is what it is. It takes time for these patterns to work out. Turkey's getting ready to invade Lebanon. You're getting ready to watch the markets completely capitulate. You're getting ready to watch the tariffs come in. And what that will do is it will raise the price on all products that are important. If you get a split between China and the United States, you'll start to see all the products not on the shelves like you used to. Also, you're having trade wars between Canada and also other trading partners. So those products aren't being imported or utilized, or people aren't buying them. And so you're starting to see shortages on the shelves, hyperinflation of products that people care about, deflation of products that people don't care about. They're talking about potentially, and we're watching car sales soar right now because they're buying before the tariffs come on, because they're concerned that there might be about a $2,500 to $10,000 raise in the price of a car depending on where it falls in the price range. So all these things are getting ready to massively affect you, okay? As you're watching companies getting ready to, because of global slowdown, and that's across the whole board, across the whole globe, you're going to watch massive layoffs, which is then going to what? Force stagflation. Okay, the problem with this is when people start seeing that they don't have any disposable income, they've been laid off and they can't pay their debt, and we're starting to watch defaults at rates of 30-year highs or higher, 50-year, time of history at this point, because of the 36 trillion sitting on the books just in the national debt clock, that this is getting ready to collapse. And it should make sense because you're in your first set of blood moons of 3 going into this next year, into the destruction of Gog of Ezekiel, into an antichrist phase, into a beast system. Okay, look, I have on March 30th, which is interesting, that Erdogan would come out on March 30th at the end of Ramadan and threaten Israel with destruction, and then a year later they're going to be signing a treaty with the nations for 1260 days into the rapture event of the Feast of Trumpets of 2029. You only have a year to get to Antichrist. And you only have from Passover, which is April 12th of this year, you only got 4.5 years to get to the end of this story to rapture, okay? But there's a lot going on next 4.5 years. And if you think you're not going to be here, good luck. You're not going to be taken out of this world before it happens. He clearly tells you you're getting ready to go into tribulation. Look, go look at Revelation 12. What does it say? The Gentiles trample the city for 1260 days. Why? Because you're here. Okay, so you need to understand what's getting ready to happen to you. This next year is going to be horrific. Everything is going to start to collapse. Look at the natural disasters that are working on the planet at this very moment in time. And this is not green anything. This is God getting ready to change your world, okay? It's that simple. God's in control. This has nothing to do with CO2, or maybe he's using CO2 to do it to us. Whatever. He's in control of this. He's going to make this happen, okay? So if you're not getting ready, you need to. You need to get 4.5 years of oil in your lamp to get ready for this, and you need to do another thing. You need to get right with the Son. Jesus. He's the only open door. Look, I'm not a big conversionalist, and I don't do Trinity that well and a number of things because I'm an eschatologist, and this is what I do, okay? But the message is always the same. Regardless of the paradigm, the most important thing will be that you believe in the Son of God, which is Jesus, the Savior, that died on the cross to give us the path to the millennial eternity over here, okay? So this is what you really need to take away from this. Look, in a year, as we get into this phase, you won't need guys like me anymore to show you charts like this. Because why? On the seventh seal, you're going to have 144,000 elect with the truth sealed in their foreheads. They're going to bring that against a war of Antichrist against him with the truth of the word. That's the only weapon we got out here is the truth. And the other thing we got is the two witnesses coming out. So I just made a comment the other day. It'll be interesting when the two witnesses come out, because I'm going to sit in front of them and find out just exactly how wrong I was in what I was teaching out here and go, wow, I'm sorry. I need to repent for that one. So with that, I'll let you go. Get ready. This one's getting ready to break. God bless you.